Welcome back, everybody. This week we're talking about a pretty traumatic movie. We are talking about the Netflix original movie that premiered October 30th, His House. Now, I do want to go ahead and give some introduction to His House. This was a first time project that was written and directed by a writer named Remi Weekes. He originally wrote the film for New Regency and BBC Films, but it was picked up by Netflix after premiering at the Sundance Film Festival in January of this year. Let me tell you that I was floored because this guy is like a new writer. This is his debut film, and he was given a $10 million budget. That is insane. It was extremely worth it, and we're going to get into how incredibly unique and traumatizing this movie is and how much it absolutely broke me. And I will go ahead and give a disclaimer. If no one's seen the film, one, go watch it because I'm not going to do a whole recap of it. There's a lot to cover. There's a lot of great videos out there that will explain the whole entire film from start to finish, but I figure I just kind of want to delve into bigger parts of the movie. So let's go ahead and dive into the movie, and I'll just go ahead and give a very, very brief synopsis of what happens. If you haven't seen the movie, click out now because there's going to be spoilers. So Bol and Rayal are a married couple from South Sudan who have made it to England as refugees after a harrowing sea journey where they unfortunately ended up losing their daughter, Niagak. Watching Bol continually deny his culture in favor of Western life is hard to watch. He so wants to move on from his past that he insists on only speaking English and aspiring to Western ideals, as can be seen in the shopping mall when he turns around from looking at some polo shirts and sees this, poster white guy wearing that same shirt. And he looks at that shirt and it's a very symbolic moment of, I want to be like that guy. And it gets even worse when there's another poster that shows off the ideal Caucasian nuclear family behind him, with the guy, the model, being the same model and wearing the same polo shirt he's still looking at. He so badly wants to be like the people around him, even though they don't trust him. And that can also be seen in the shopping scene that we were just discussing. As he's walking into the shop, the security guards start to follow him. I believe it's very noticeable. Maybe some people didn't catch up on it. He's just like walking through, minding his own business, and some security guards start following him. And there's obviously a lot of prejudice towards refugees in this town, and there's obviously some racial prejudice, as we unfortunately know exists. So it's just very sad how he wants to be like people who don't trust him. He and his wife, Rayal, cannot come to agreement on the cultural shift, as she wants nothing to do with England or Western culture after she has a very upsetting experience with some black teenagers who she thinks that she can relate to. They're the same color as her, and she starts to go up to them and speak her native tongue, looking for some comfort, I assume. And when the boys tell her to go back to Africa, it's just a very upsetting scene because you can tell how much she is struggling, and that was probably just topping it all off for her. To see these people who she thought she could relate to just be totally dismissive of her and her identity and her culture. The denial each part of the couple has for different reasons makes their relationship harder to deal with. So, as if they don't have enough issues because of surrounding situations, they're now dealing with a divide in their home. They literally can't get along. Real wants to speak in their native Dinka language, and Bol just doesn't want that. He wants to speak English, and he just wants to be one of the good ones, as is said a few times in the movie. Watching the reality of the day Bol and Real escaped from South Sudan is absolutely traumatizing. It's an absolutely heartbreaking ordeal. As Real states earlier in the film, after seeing what men can do to each other, it's not bumps in the night that scare her. It was very, very jarring, to say the least. There's nothing that could prepare us for the truth behind Bol and Real's journey. Niagak is not their daughter. She was a scared, lost little girl that was calling out for her mama. Bull saw that this was an opportunity as the transport was only allowing those with children on. He scoops Nyagak up and claims that it is their child so they can get on the bus. The situation becomes more emotionally taxing, like when Nyagak spots her mother and the both of them cry out for each other, but she's already on the bus and Nyagak's mother is outside the bus banging on the window calling for her. Nyagak seems defenseless and cannot do anything but keep screaming for her mama. Bull holds her back. All Real can do is watch. One passenger looks her way as her supposed child is screaming, but I believe she serves as a tool for the guilt that Real is feeling. To know that Nyagak died as a kidnapped child, alone without her mother, is a chilling feeling. This more so explains why they're being cursed by the Apeth, because an accident is completely one thing if their actual daughter had tragically been lost at sea. But they created the outcome for Nyagak, and that's traumatizing. That is so heartbreaking. Why it's called his house. I thought this was really interesting. This is symbolic for control and ownership. Since Bull has not lived a life where he has much control over it, he doesn't even have control over who he is in this new country since he's trying so hard to assimilate to this culture he's not familiar with and completely forget about who he is. The darker side of this is that it symbolizes envy and greed. If you watch the movie, you know that throughout the film, a few times the council workers in the movie state, his house is bigger than mine. They only care about, I guess, how big the house is. And I would attribute that to the fact price of living can be very high. Houses can run smaller for most people. And so there's a bit of envy there with the people who are supposed to be, helping him kind of accommodate to this new life with being council workers. So in a way, saying his house is bigger than mine, it's implying that the couple should be grateful even if it's unkept and in awful conditions. When it all seems like it's coming to a close and Real is accepting her husband's fate, she lets go of Nyagak's hand because in that moment, she does not belong to the past. She belongs to the present, and this only comes after accepting her grief, and she goes to help her husband. And they are able from there to carry on, and they live with their grief, and they accept their grief. But they no longer ignore it and let it be this sinking, anxious feeling inside them that controls them. All in all, this movie has a lot of layers. It has the layers of immigration, accommodation versus assimilation, global struggles, worldwide struggles, refugee issues, and it also goes on to talk about grief. And there's a lot of grief to be had when one moving from one country to another, let alone having to flee from violence, and then also having a tragedy happen along that way. There's a lot of grief to process, and the meaning of the movie, at least in my eyes, was that you have to come face to face with that, and you need to learn to accept and live with it and not pretend like it never happened, because it is a part of you. And unfortunately, for in the situation of Bull and Real, it is the situation that they have to deal with, knowing that they took this little girl away from her mom so that they could survive. But at the end of the day, they learned how to overcome their demons. Now they're able to live peacefully, and they are left off excited, both of them, to start their new life in England. And it's no longer his house. This is our home, is what they say at the end. And I think that's great. Because you can see it, I'm just going to address it. This is a microphone wrapped in a sock. I'm on a budget. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will have a new video up next week, and sooner or later I'll be doing some reaction stuff. So get ready for that, because there's some great films I haven't seen yet, including horror, which I think horror is the most fun to react to. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and maybe give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I think this movie's spectacular. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the symbolism, and I'll see you next time. Bye.